Okay, I just started it.
All right. So Bhupinder and Bruce are talking about 1470 Roosevelt in Saint Hubert. It's an interesting house. Bhupinder has bought it through a wholesaler. And the reason Bhupinder did that, he explained it to me before we started recording, is that the wholesaler was somebody he could deal with one-on-one, whereas in just the general MLS right now in the Montreal area, there's 10 or 15, 20, even 30 bids for every house, and it was just impossible for Bhupinder to get something. So he bought this house, which is one of the largest in the area. It's a little more expensive, and for some reason or other, this had been sitting on the market for some time, which is unusual in Montreal at this time. It's December 17th, 2020. So what we've been talking about is, okay, Bhupinder and I have been, not just today, but before this, we've been talking about buy and hold. But it's buy, animate, renovate, lease it properly, drive up the value, refinance in a year or two as you drive up the value, but you hold on to it. And then eventually, I think in a year and a half, maybe 2 years, Bhupinder, if it's worth more, you'll be able to take some money out. The problem that we have is that Montreal and Quebec in general is much more heavily regulated than most provinces and most states throughout Canada and the United States. And therefore, you are not allowed in this area, in many areas of Quebec, to convert a single family home into effectively a duplex by adding a legal separate suite. In other words, could be a micro suite, it could be a basement apartment, could be a side yard apartment, could be an apartment in the attic. That is legal in many parts of Ontario, but not so much in Quebec. Same thing we were talking about before we started recording, that again, Airbnb in Ontario, in most parts of Ontario, if you want to do up an apartment as an Airbnb, you just do it. But in Quebec, you absolutely have to register and you have to be approved, and there's a whole process there. So what Bhupinder and I have been trying to figure out is what's the highest and best use for it. And if I understand it correctly, it can become an intergenerational home. All right. So you can have the upper unit will be 4 bedrooms, 2 bath, and 1 working space. And the lower unit will include, I think, the ground floor and the basement. It will have 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, and some storage in the basement.
Yeah, I was considering the basement as the lower unit.
So the ground floor goes with the upstairs.
Yeah, so that includes like four rooms.
Okay, so the basement is the second unit, if you will.
Yes. Yes.
Is there any part, I'm just asking, is there any part of the ground floor that could go with the basement?
Mm, how can we? I think we.
Bhupinder, do you have the floor plans?
Yes, I have.
All right, so you're a co-host. I'm going to stop sharing now. Before I stop sharing Bhupinder, I just want to point out for the record, this is one thing that Bhupinder and I both like. The fact that they have pavers in front means that Bhupinder will be able to put 1 car in the garage, or his tenant will be able to put a car in the garage, a car in the driveway, and 1 parking parallel here. So he should have 3 parking spaces. All right, so now, if you don't mind sharing your screen, and I want to see the floor plans. You should have sent me the floor plans, brother.
Um,
While you're looking for it, I'll just read into the record. So this was bought from a wholesaler for $426,000. It was advertised on MLS at around 440 or 450,000. So Bhupinder did a little bit better. He negotiated the deposit down, which I think is a good thing. His deposit is $10,000 instead of what the wholesaler was asking for, which was $20,000. And the reason I like smaller deposits is often the deposits go to the notary for the seller or goes to the realtor for the seller. and it's very hard to get it back if something goes wrong with this deal. So Bhupinder did a good thing, although I would have preferred, as I said before we started recording, Bhupinder, if it had been 5,000 instead of 10, because there are issues getting deposits back if that becomes an issue or necessary. Having said that, you still did better than 20K.
Yeah.
So do you have the floor plans?
I don't have the floor plan actually. There was one with the addition, so there was a second floor that was added, and
All right, so
there
just
was-
let me try this, okay? So one of the ways to make a basement apartment more usable, believe it or not, is to take one room at the top of the stairs leading down to the basement and include that with the basement. So until I see the floor plan, so one of the things I'd like you to do, Bhupinder, is get the floor plans. Okay, if they are not available, do you have a right to revisit this home
yeah.
between now and April? How many rights to revisit do you have?
Two.
Two. And do you have an architectural technologist or a designer who can help you?
Yeah, I have. So nowadays, they take like the pictures, 3D pictures. So I have someone who can take those for me.
All right. So, and what you can do is you can go and take 3D pictures, and many of these programs, as you know, will then produce really good set of floor plans.
Yeah.
So I think you should do that. And if you don't mind, share them with me. But I want to just describe what I'm talking about, okay? It would be easier to do it if we could show the floor plan. So it's just my hands in the air. And if you're wondering why I'm standing talking to you, is I've been doing too much sitting.
Yeah.
Since the pandemic began, I am 69 years of age, so I'm not really allowed out. They don't let me out very much. I've been sitting for 9 months, and it's just too much. So my doctor, my wife, I put on about 10 or 12 pounds. I've usually been pretty fit, Bhupinder, throughout my life, but I'll admit I've been sitting too much. So I'm going to stand if you don't mind.
Oh no, no, but I have been losing weight
What's that?
from the pandemic start. From
Yeah.
Since the pandemic started, I have been losing weight.
You're killing me. Yeah, I put on at least 10 pounds and maybe 12, and I got to lose it. It's not good for a person to be. I'm reasonably fit. I do yoga twice a week. I run on my treadmill, but still, it's not enough. It's not. I've been really active in nine months now. I think it's 10 months. I haven't really done much. Okay. So just bear with me for a moment. So let's assume that there's a kitchen on the ground floor. Okay, there's a kitchen there, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that kitchen is at the top of the stairs leading down to the basement. Are you following me?
Yeah.
And if you find a way to sort of separate the kitchen, and so it becomes part of the basement, that adds a lot of value. Because if you've ever lived in a basement apartment, it could get quite dark, and it could get quite depressing, especially in Canada, where it seems to be winter 6 months of the year. Montreal has a 6-month winter almost, and Ottawa's the same, maybe even worse. And so this is something I learned from a client of mine. I had never really thought of it, but what he did on one of his properties is he had a separate entrance to the basement. And he included the kitchen as part of the basement unit. So when you're having, and it had a little breakfast nook in there, a little eating area, so you could make your meals, eat something, and you're above a grade. And it really made a huge difference to not only how much rent you get for the basement apartment, but also how long tenants will stay. Okay, so I want you to think about that. And it does mean you have to build another kitchen, but you would have to build another kitchen anyway.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's enough room on the ground floor and on the second floor, because it's a big house, where you could have a second kitchen. But instead of building it in the basement, you build it either on the ground floor, which is preferable, or maybe even on the second floor. We've done that as well. So you've got 2 independent units. Now, the next question I have for you, well, and before I forget, one of the things that we do with our basement apartments now, Bhupinder, is you can go and buy from Home Depot or Lowe's or Rona, or I guess Home Hardware. You can go and buy daylighting. So these are bulbs that LED, I think, that produce the right kind of light for to help people with what's called SAD. Do you know what SAD is?
Yeah, like getting depressed due to the lightings.
It's called seasonal affective disorder. And you can put it on the ground floor as well if you want to, but particularly for basement units, have at least one room where the lights, if you have pot lights, you have these bulbs that produce what is close to natural light, or it feels like it. And it makes a significant difference year round. In summer it's less of a problem because the sun doesn't go down in Montreal until 9 or 9:30 at night, and it rises at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, so you have lots of sunlight. But even in the summer, if you're in a basement, when you walk into a room that has these lights, and they're not that expensive, but it's a huge difference. So what you're trying to do, Bhupinder, is you're trying to reduce the churn. Okay, in other words, every time if you have to replace tenants in your buildings every year, that's very expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, you might have to repaint it, you might have to clean it, you might have 2 weeks to maybe a month where you don't have any rent. You have to advertise it, you have to do the background checks and all that stuff, right? So we really should focus on ways to reduce that. Okay, and that's a very inexpensive way to help people. But if you could find a way to design it so that the kitchen on the ground floor belongs to the basement, that would be a big plus. Now, the next question I have for you is, there is an entrance, we looked at it before we got too far along here, or an exit from the garage into the backyard.
Yeah.
When you come in to the garage from the backyard and then you enter the house, where are you entering the house?
That goes to the basement.
From the garage goes to the basement.
Yeah, I mean, there are stairs to go to the basement, or I'll be on the main floor.
Right, but when you come into the garage from the backyard, right, you probably have to go up a few stairs to get into the main level.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sorry, yeah, that's correct.
And then when you get in there, where are you in the house?
That's
in the kitchen? In the kitchen?
In the kitchen, yeah.
Ah, okay. So you do have a secret entrance to the basement. You understand what I'm coming from? If the kitchen is part of the basement unit and that back door to the garage goes in there, you have a second entrance.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen again with you. All right. So we're making progress. I know it's a little slow, but we'll get there, Bhupinder. So this garage, this garage should belong to the basement tenant, if you understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And
basically,
so
I think you were saying we need to exit for the basement unit as well, right? So is that you're getting?
what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find a way to make sure that the person or persons living in the basement have their own ingress and egress. Okay. And I'm not talking about what is the legal building code exiting. That's a different kind of discussion. But in terms of making something an intergenerational home that works better, let me give you an example. My house here, we have a suite in the basement. All right. So this is my principal residence. We have a suite there. I don't make any money from it. Do you want to know why?
Yes.
My youngest son broke up with his girlfriend and he's living there. And he doesn't pay, I don't ask him to pay any rent. But having a separate entrance to the basement suite is very important. It gives it an independence. Okay. Now it is just a basement suite. Okay. And so it is, it's dark and whatever have you. So what we're going to do next year, we would have done it this year, but the pandemic intervened, is we're going to do what I call a manufactured walkout. I'll see if I can. Did you ever see that on any of my stuff that I gave you?
Yeah, I've seen that. Walkout conditions.
Exactly. I mean, but I'll see if I've got a few pictures here that so something like this. All right. So it costs about $25,000 to do that. By the time you excavate it, you put in some French doors, you have to, in Montreal and in Canada, generally you have to have a drain here because, we get a lot of snow and ice and water and whatever else. But you can see for a basement unit how it opens it up, right? So when my son finds a new girlfriend and moves out, we'll put a new entrance to the basement like that. It brings more light, more air. And what we'll do as well, Bhupinder, is you can see they've only excavated here maybe 4 feet, maybe 1.5 meters, okay? But what we'll do is we'll excavate further. And so it will be big enough to have a barbecue down here and a private table. So you'll be able to have a picnic table outside and a barbecue and maybe a bench. So we'll make it a little bit bigger. I mean, if you're going to go to the cost of doing something like this, which is $25,000 to open up the foundation and do this, maybe you're going to spend an extra $3,000 or $4,000 on concrete and other structure to make it a little broader, but that adds, again, more utility. Are you following me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but that's not something you need to do now. Let's go back to this diagram here. So something else that you might consider doing is something that I did. I may have shown you this already, but this is one of the buildings that I own, my wife and I own in Ottawa. And I'll show it to you here. You may have seen it already. So this building here is kind of similar to what you've bought. Can you see it okay?
Yeah.
So this walkway goes to a side yard apartment. And you can see we're doing some work here. So this is the side yard apartment, and you can see it's above grade. And it has its own walkway, its own little area here. And we got some additional parking by doing something very similar to the Roosevelt property. This is where the tenant on the side here, he parks here, and this is his walkway, goes down there. But if we go down this way a little bit, here's a garage door that we put into this building that has a man door in it. Can you see that?
Yes.
Have I shown you this before?
Yeah, I remember you have shown it yeah, I don't remember all the details, but yeah, I remember.
Okay, so this is actually made in Quebec, this door. It's an insulated garage door, and it has a man door. It still works as a garage door, but it's also a man door, okay? So I'm not saying you have to do this right away, but at some point you might put a man door in this. It still works as a garage door, but it has a man door. You might actually change that door so that, yes, they can put their car in there or not, but they can also access it as a man door. That is a legal thing to do. It's perfectly fine, and it makes it much, much easier to ingress and egress than walking around the back.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so let's assume for the moment you've got the 2 units. Now, I'm assuming that we can get the kitchen and the garage and part of the backyard for the basement unit, and we've done the kitchen at grade or upstairs for the other unit. What we do to make an intergenerational product like this legal in Quebec and in parts of Ontario too, is we have a door between the 2 units that opens and closes, but it can also be locked on both sides for privacy. So let's say a nice family was living here, and they had the family upstairs, and then they had some adult children with their kids living there. You could have privacy. It's still part of the main house. It's not legally separated, and you might not be allowed to have doors that lock if you're doing any renovations. You might just show it as an ordinary door with just normal handles. But maybe after the building permit inspectors have gone away and you've got your occupancy permit and everything has been approved, you might take that door handle off and put a double loaded lock on it. Do you understand?
Yeah. Okay.
That probably isn't legal, but a lot of people do that just to give people a bit of privacy. It's like when you in your house, most master bedrooms have a lock on it, because if you have kids and you're having private time with your wife, maybe you don't really want the kids running in and out. So I think you could probably get away with a simple door lock, but I know a lot of my clients in Quebec, they just put normal door handles on it, but then maybe they change it over time. The other possibility here, I think, is that you rent it as a multi-generational house, that's fine, no problem with that. But what I'm worried about is that you won't get the kind of rent that you need in order to get a cap rate that makes sense. So one of the things you and I have talked about is maybe doing an augmented tenancy, which I think is legal. So in Quebec, I'm talking about. So what you would do is somebody would come along and they could rent the basement apartment, maybe with the upstairs kitchen, and they would take charge of the whole house. They would rent the whole house, okay? But they would live in the basement, and then they would sublet. They would sublet, not you. They would sublet the upstairs, or the other way around. Maybe it's a young family. The young family rents the upstairs, and they have your permission as the landlord to sublet the downstairs unit. So it's not the landlord creating a duplex. It's like, let's say I rented the house from you, and there's no reason, I'm allowed to have a roommate if I want to. You understand that?
Yeah.
In Quebec, you can't stop people, as far as I know anyway, from having roommates. So you could have roommates downstairs who pay rent to the main tenant. The main tenant pays you rent. That's an augmented tenancy. So question for you, Bhupinder, let's just do the first scenario. If you rented the whole house to an intergenerational family, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, maybe adult children, what would you rent the whole thing for?
If I rent the whole house, I have checked the price, the rents, those like something smaller than this one was rented in less than 30 days, and it was 2,200. So this one is definitely more than that. It has 3 more rooms if I take the whole. So probably 2,700 or 2,600 to 2,800.
Okay. All right, now let me ask you the next question. If it was legal, which it is not, but if it was legal to have a duplex here, what could you rent the basement apartment, assuming it has an upstairs kitchen, for?
With the kitchen, I think it will have some more value, but what I had in the numbers is the basement will be around 1,200. With the kitchen, yeah, so I'll still be around 1,200 to 1,300.
So I think with the kitchen upstairs, you probably get 1,400.
1,400, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put 1,400. And then for the upstairs unit,
About 2,200.
how much?
22.
22.
Yeah.
So if you were allowed to duplex it, you might end up with $3,600 a month, correct?
Yes.
Versus maybe 2,600 a month.
Yeah.
All right. So it's about $1,000 difference, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's quite a bit.
It's quite a bit.
So what you might consider doing is you might consider putting the basement unit up for rent at $1,400, but on the understanding, when you talk to the tenant for the basement, that you're going to rent, or you're going to work with them to rent the upstairs, but it's going to be a sublet by them for, say, $2,200 a month. Okay, so if I'm a young person, there's a 2-bedroom unit there. I could be there with a buddy of mine. Two guys could rent it together. Two ladies could rent it together, and we're each paying $700 a month. But because I'm subletting the upstairs, I'm taking responsibility with you to do that, and you would share the revenues upstairs. So what you might do is you might give the guy downstairs, you might give him, say, $400 a month, because he's sharing, he's doing the subletting, and he will get 400 from that, and he will give you 1,800. So now you're making 3,200. But for me, the guy downstairs, I'm paying $1,000. And if I have a buddy with me, we're each paying $500 a month, which is pretty good. That's an augmented tenancy.
Yeah.
Or it could be a family, and the family says, I love this house. I'll rent the upstairs for $2,200. And you say, okay, super. And we're going to do the sublet downstairs together. We'll work on it together. We're going to rent it for 1,400, and I'll give you from that, I'll give you 400 bucks. So now, instead of paying 2,200, they're down to 1,800, which is great. But you are at, I don't know if I got that right. Maybe I didn't get it right. Anyway, you're back to $3,200 a month. So
Yeah.
I think you can get to $3,200 a month with augmented tenancy, something like that. Right? But if you just put this house up for rent at 3,600 bucks, you're probably not going to get many takers.
No, yeah.
So I want you to do this calculation now, okay? So this is a good animation. I like it. So let's do this. Let's assume that you could get 3,200 bucks from this with this augmented tenancy thing, and you paid 426,000. How much money are you going to spend on the renovation?
Yeah, if I'm renting it, I don't want to do a lot of renovations.
You have to put another kitchen in to make it sort of multi-generational. So if you put in another kitchen and maybe a couple of doors, maybe a door, you know, something like that, maybe a little bit more drywall, what do you have to budget for that?
So I definitely know we have to do the painting. So I had the budget. So in general painting, I had like 6,000 for painting the whole house.
Oh, that's way too much. If you're paying $6,000, I'm coming to Montreal to paint it.
And I can do that. I mean, I just had it as a ballpark.
So I understand that, but I'm not kidding. If you're spending $6,000, me and my buddies will come and we'll paint it for you for $6,000. I'm just teasing a bit, Bhupinder. I don't have time to paint a house, but that I would budget 3,500 bucks.
Okay.
Okay, and I don't think you should spend more than that. Okay, and how much are you going to spend on a kitchen for the upstairs?
Kitchen about 5,000 minimum.
I'm going to put 7,500 for that.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put in a little bit for lighting because I want you to put some good lighting in. So I'm going to put $500 in for lighting, and I'm going to put in another $2,500 for a door and some drywall. Okay. So your renovation budget, hang on a second, is 10, 11, 13, is about $13,200. That's reasonable. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it might be a little more, might be a little less. It depends on that. Are you handy at all? Can you do any of the work yourself?
I can. I mean, I surprised myself. I was doing some landscaping work, the triplex I bought.
I do some landscaping. That's very good. That will really help. All right. So let's say you buy it for $426,000, and let's say that the total cost, a little bit of landscaping, et cetera, is $15,000. So your total cost will be $441,000. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you get $3,200 a month with this augmented tenancy thing. All right, you ready with your calculator? Yes. All right, so 3,200 times 12.
Yes.
What do you get?
384, 38,400. All
right, so your gross operating income, your GOI, your gross operating income will be about 38,400. Multiply it by 0.66 to get your net operating income. You remember 34% goes out the window for all the OPEX stuff. So what do you get for your net operating income?
0.66. I get 25,344.
Okay. Per annum. That's your net operating. And divide that by 441,000.
About 57%. No, sorry, 5.75. 5.75.
5.75% per annum. So I think your cap rate is going to be close to the 6% target that I set for you. Remember, I don't like buying properties below 6%. Obviously, if you can get 7 or 8 or 9, but 5.75% is in this market is actually pretty good. Again, you're almost at the 6% mark, but without the augmented tenancy, you probably won't get there.
Yeah,
All right.
correct.
Now, there are a couple of other animations that you might want to consider doing. Let's just look at some of the other animations that you might consider doing. Let's see what else might work for you guys. So micro
Just a question on
basement.
the mic, just a question
What's
on
that?
the augmented tenancy. Just a question on the augmented
Sure.
tenancy one, like,
Yep.
um, would it be like a standard rental lease, or I have to edit it a bit?
Yeah. When you find somebody who wants to do an augmented tenancy, you have to come back to me because I have all the forms that you're going to need. It's a very different lease.
Mm,
Right. So have you done, Bhupinder, have you done, I did about an hour and a half video with Tristan Pelche about proper residential leasing. Have you done that tutorial?
yes.
Okay, so that's a good start. But on augmented tenancy, when you find somebody, it could be the basement apartment, they have to be a little entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
But when you're ready to do it, reach back to me because I'll give you the language, the clauses that you'll need. You'll have to check it with your notary. Do you have a notary in Quebec?
Um, yeah, I mean, I have closed one, so
But you have a notary that you like and trust?
sorry, you mean notary or lawyer? So for the
Well,
language taking, I
well,
can use a
well,
lawyer.
for transactions that you close, you need to have your own representation. You cannot rely on the seller's notary to protect your interests.
Yeah, I don't have a separate notary for that one.
All right. So whether it can be a lawyer too, but you need, Bhupinder, this is no BS. You cannot rely on the because that notary probably works very closely with the seller, and they will not, in my opinion, sorry to say it, but they will not necessarily have your best interest at heart.
Yeah, I do have a lawyer to review my. So earlier when I was making offers, I got
But
it reviewed.
don't sign anything with that the notary prepares without your lawyer looking at it.
Okay.
Okay. And do you know what title insurance is?
Yes. Yeah.
So you will record, you just have to have your own. I know it costs money, but it's money
Yeah.
well spent because I would never, ever, ever allow a lawyer or a notary to represent me in a transaction if he or she was representing the seller. There's no way. I would have my own lawyer or my own notary reviewing everything because you can get really into a lot of trouble. And don't forget title insurance, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So a couple of things that will really help you rent this place, I think. We already talked about it, putting in some daylighting.
Yes.
But the other thing I think you should probably consider is putting in a tech package.
Yeah.
You remember my tech packages?
Yeah.
They are hugely popular. I have people who seek us out as landlords because we have all the technology, right? So we in every one of our units, we have a Nest thermostat. If you know what those are.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they're programmable, and it means that if it's too cold, you just go on there and you can change it, or if it's too hot, you can do that. So we use Nest thermostats. We put in large screen TVs that we own as the landlord in each unit. So we just one. We don't put in 10 of them. We put in one, and that large screen TV has Netflix, Amazon Prime, Crave TV, basic cable. It's obviously an internet TV, so you've got YouTube and all the other apps that you would want on it. So we put that into both of the units, and people pay for that, right? We charge between $115 a month and $155 a month for each unit. All right. And so when people come in, everything works. They've got great Wi-Fi. We put in really good Wi-Fi. With no dead spots. I hate it when people are having to go around the house, with their phones trying to find a good spot. We don't do that. We have really good Google repeaters, that we put in all over the place. It's called a Google Mesh system. So
Yeah.
that Wi-Fi in this building here and all the other buildings we own, whether they're commercial or residential, is excellent Wi-Fi. Okay. So we've got really good internet, really good Wi-Fi. Thank God we did that when the pandemic hit. Everybody had to start working from home if they could. So we've got good tech packages, and we've got very good music as well. We've got Amazon Music, and we've also got Spotify, right? And it's a profit center for us, but it also means that tenants really like it. They pay for it, but they pay about the same that they would as if they contracted with one of these media companies, and we make a little bit of money on it. Actually, we do quite well on it, and it keeps people with us longer. Again, if we can have tenants staying for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes even longer, it really helps us.
Yeah.
All right, so tech packages. The other thing that I would probably do is I would probably put a storage shed in the backyard, and I would divide it into into two. So you could buy those Alma sheds, and they have doors at either end. And we buy them. Do you know what I'm talking about when I talk about the Alma sheds?
No, I know the storage sheds that divide into two, but I don't know the element.
I'll just see if I can find them. My computer here, I've got a million of them, but I'd like to show you. Maybe this one will show some of them. Well, here's a little closer look at that garage door that I was talking about. So here's the garage door with the man door in it.
Yeah,
I want to show you the sheds. So these are typical Amish sheds that we buy. And you can see they have double doors here, and then we put a divider down the middle, and they have another set of double doors at the end. We buy these sheds for about $2,500. You strip out the grass underneath it, put a little bit of gravel down, you put a couple of patio stones down, you put the shed on top, divider inside. So it's about $3,000. So it's not cheap. It has a metal roof, and that shed, believe it or not, I have some of these sheds that I've had for 40 years, and they're still good. So you'll be older than I am now, and these sheds will still be usable. And so it costs us about $3,000 to put a shed in the backyard, and we charge our tenants $85 a month for each side. So we get about $170 a month. All right, and times 12, so we're getting about $2,000 of extra income a year from a shed like that. On a $3,000 cost, the cap rate's a lot higher than 5.75%. All right, and real estate is about making a little bit of money on a lot of things. It's not get rich quick. I wish it was. It is not. It takes a while. So a storage shed is probably another animation that you could consider.
Yeah, no, that's so I'm happy, like we like but I think the main concern for me is to get like the augmented tenancy working.
Absolutely.
If not, then it will just.
You have to do that. You have to do that. But there are people who are very entrepreneurial, and did you ever see the video on the very first augmented tenant?
Yeah, this the
The lady.
Yeah, the review.
Yeah, I think I sent it to you.
Yeah.
And she was the very first one, and she wasn't born to be an entrepreneur, but people can be very entrepreneurial. I'll tell you a funny story. I do some coaching for Habitat for Humanity. You know what Habitat for Humanity is?
No.
They build houses for families that need help.
Okay.
Habitat for Humanity. Okay.
Canada?
All over the world, Canada, the United States. It started out as a Christian organization, but now it's not just for Christians, it's for everybody. And so if your family, you have to pay something. It's not a free house, okay? But it's heavily subsidized. So Habitat for Humanity will find a good family, usually with lots of kids, and they need a house, and they can't really afford it. So Habitat will build it, but the requirement is that everybody who gets a Habitat for Humanity house has to put in 500 hours of labor when the thing is building. Right? So they might just come and they might clean, or they might shovel, or they don't have to do the electrical or the plumbing. Maybe they're not qualified for that, but they have to put in 500 hours. So
Yeah.
that's their equity. And then they do have a mortgage. Habitat will arrange a mortgage for them, and they must pay that mortgage, but it will be a lot less than if they bought this house from a wholesaler. All right. So Habitat for Humanity, I coached them and I said to them, I want you to add in every one of your Habitat for Humanity homes in Ontario a basement apartment or a side yard apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, oh, no, we can't do that. Most of our families that we're helping are immigrants and they're not entrepreneurial. I said, I don't agree with that. Like, if you're coming from Somalia, or you're coming from Haiti, or wherever you're coming from, during the pandemic in Haiti, they're not sending you $2,000 every 4 weeks like the CERB benefit. They're not. And I know a lot of Haitians, and I know lots of folks from Somalia, and I know lots of people who are immigrants to this country.
Mm-hmm.
And almost all of them are very entrepreneurial, because if you live in Haiti and you don't have some kind of side hustle, you'll starve. There's no help for you. You've got to earn a living or you die. So I said, I think you're underestimating your clients. They said, oh, no. It would be too complicated for them to become sub-landlords. And I said, I don't agree. And they fired me.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah, they said your coaching is of no value to us. A year later, there was a change in management with the group I was, and they rehired me because they had discovered that their clients, because they talked to them about it after the other manager was replaced, are very entrepreneurial, right? And they certainly understand the value of having a separate apartment. So people like that, Bhupinder, would absolutely understand augmented tenancy. Do you understand that? So, whether they're immigrants to Canada, or they're residents of Canada, or they're citizens of Canada, there are lots of people who understand an augmented tenancy. And the very first one we did, which is now about 6 or 7 years ago, she was not very entrepreneurial, but she needed a house for herself and her children, and she couldn't afford it. This was the only way she could have a nice house for herself. So even somebody who's not very entrepreneurial, once she understood the concept, said, oh my gosh, this is a lifesaver. So I want you to think about it as Bhupinder is creating an opportunity for somebody to live in a nice, safe, comfortable, secure environment at a much lower cost. The basement apartment, instead of costing $1,400, I would probably give them $420. So their net rent would be $980. $980 for a beautiful 2-bedroom with the kitchen upstairs. You're going to get a lot of people who will be interested in that. Imagine if you put a Kijiji. Is Kijiji big in Montreal?
Yeah, there is Kijiji. There is a website called Alue, like for
Alue, yeah, for sure. But whether it's Alue or Kijiji or whatever you use, if you say, look, for entrepreneurial tenants who want to help me, you can have a place for $985 net a month. 2 bedrooms with a kitchen up here. And the other thing I want you to do, Bhupinder, once you've painted it and you've done everything, before anybody moves in, you get professional pictures taken again by your friend. You understand that?
Yeah.
Like, great, after your tenants move in, maybe their furniture isn't great. So excuse me. So you want to take the pictures after you've renovated, when there's nothing in there. It'll be beautiful professional pictures, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It might cost you $100 or $150, but it's really worth it. You'll have those pictures for decades. and they're mint.
Yeah, we can reuse them.
You can reuse them, and when you're renting 2 years from now or 5 years from now, you reuse them. They're fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah,
There's
that's
something.
yeah,
You go
quite
ahead.
quite helpful because I was thinking some ways to make it as a separate basement unit, like a basement unit. One of the thing I had in my mind is to convert the garage into an entrance, and I've seen quite a lot of people in Montreal have that. They just make it as a separate, maybe a mud room or something, but there is an entrance. You can just go
Yeah,
in and
yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm okay with that. But the least expensive thing for you to do, in my opinion, would be to put a man door in that garage door, and you're good to go.
yeah,
Right. And by stealing the upstairs kitchen for the downstairs unit, I think you'll add a lot of additional value.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think yeah,
There was
that
something
yeah.
else I was going to mention to you. So you'll take good pictures. That's great. But if you think about it, this is you're on a mission, right? The mission is to provide affordable housing, because let's say me and my buddy were able to rent the 2-bedroom from you downstairs for effectively $985 a month. That's less than $500 each.
Yeah.
Are you going to charge utilities on top?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think you should. Is it electric heating?
Electric heating.
Yeah. Well, thank God in Quebec power is so cheap.
Yeah, I think it's comparatively cheaper, but I don't know how different here.
Well,
When I moved to
it's a lot. I mean, the power rates in Ontario are about 18.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and in Quebec it's about 3 or 4 cents.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's way. No, you would not want electric heat, in Ontario, but in Quebec it's fine. It makes a lot of sense, and thank God it's so cheap.
Yeah, everyone here uses electrical heating because when I
Yeah,
moved to Ontario, I was thinking first thing there is no furnace. No one uses furnace heating.
I think that's great.
Yeah,
I mean, you're lucky. But if you were paying 18 or 19 cents a kilowatt hour, you'd rip out those baseboards and you put in natural gas.
yeah, definitely.
Quebec is fantastic for power. But there's something else that I thought of for this building, and I can't remember what it is now. It just came into my head, and it went as fast as it came in. There's another animation I was thinking of, but I'm not sure what it is.
Mm. Yeah, I think we were discussing about the garage door.
Yeah, the garage door, I think, you want to spend $15,000 renovating it rather than 30,000.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, for now, you can, yeah, you've got a really good program here, and it'll work. For the upstairs unit, when they want to go into the backyard, how will they access the backyard?
Yeah, that's the only way to go there is unless we create um yeah, there is no way that is created. They
So
just have one way.
I think that the way that the people, you know, are going to get to the backyard, I think you can get to the backyard this way, Bhupinder. Can you see my cursor move here?
Yeah, that around the house, yeah, we can.
Yeah. So I think what you would do is, you might put a path in here, just gravel,
Mhm.
leading into the backyard. And then we'll just do this. We'll just turn it around a little bit. Let's go to the back here. Oops. Not quite. So what I'm thinking is that the backyard would be, half of it would be for these guys here. You understand? So the downstairs unit would get this, if you know what I mean,
Mhm.
and the upstairs guys would get this.
I see.
So if this shed is at the end of its life, I would put your new shed right in the middle. You understand?
Mhm.
And say, this is your yard, and for the upstairs guys, this is your yard, because people really like private, ingress and egress, and they like to have their own space. Because, you know, let's say I'm living in the upstairs unit with my wife and my son. You know, I want to be able to go and have a barbecue, but I don't really want the downstairs guys, you know, and the downstairs guys, if they're a couple of young guys, don't really want me around either.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So rather than putting a fence there, you can put it, if you did have a storage shed, you put the storage shed and it kind of divides it into two.
Oh wow, okay.
Do you understand that?
Yeah, yeah. And we cannot put like a fence there, probably some trees or
Oh, you could put a fence there if you wanted to, you
yeah.
know, but if you just put the shed there, you know, and the shed, you know, would be like that. So the basement guys have their door here and the upstairs guys have their door here. It kind of, it sort of separates it. If you wanted to, you can put a fence there too. We put so on that building I showed you where the garage was with the man door. We do have the backyard fenced and divided because people really like to have an opportunity. You know, we're cooped up for 6 months, so that when we finally get out in the spring, they like to have their own space.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So I would like to see the floor plans, and I'd like to see what you're going to do. And you're going to reach back to me. And when you take, I want to see the pictures of the rooms too, because right now we're just got to kind of, we've just been doing a lot of this with our hands.
Yeah,
And when you're ready to do an augmented tenancy, that's exciting. I'll help you with that.
yeah, definitely. I think that's what I have to do.
I'm really excited about it. You know, because I love to help people, and not just you. I want you and your wife obviously to make more money, and I'd like you to get to that 6%. So if you did put the storage shed there and you put the tech package in, you probably would get to 6 and 6 and a bit. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. You'll be very close anyway. But the other thing, you won't forget to have your lawyer look at everything before you do anything else. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. Last thing, after this Zoom call is over, when I close it, that video will download to your computer. You know that, right?
Yeah, it's gets saved to my local disk.
It will, and it will convert to an MP4 file.
Mhm.
Okay. Can you Dropbox that MP4 file for me? Because what I'll do is I will put it on my YouTube channel. Okay, unlisted, just for you and me.
Yeah, we can do that. Let me stop the recording.
Okay.